If you work in a team, you should be using Monday.com. It's a platform to manage any team and any workflow. Marketing, sales pipelines, construction, creative productions.
And we're live. You right, guys? How you doing? It is me, Henshin, once more, and once again I've got Erlen with me. And if you'd like to say a greeting to everyone, my dude.
Hello, hello, hello. All I keep hearing is Raid Shadow Legends in the back of my headphones. But I am fine. How are you today on this lovely Wednesday?
Yeah, it's all pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. Honestly, a little bit colder than I thought it was going to be today, but other than that.
Could that be because we've also got a cold episode of Zenkaiger?
Yes, exactly. Ironic that is. I'm so glad that they had a little introduction to our first character. So let's just quickly talk about what happened yesterday, well, sorry, last episode, because of the fact that we had a little trouble with that. And yeah, so many technical issues, but hopefully this time it will run perfectly. So obviously we had Juran Gawon first debut team, had the Mushroom World. We know that gears are that are controlled by the bad guys house each of the dimensions that they've previously captured. The one that Kaito and the others are a part of, that's the last one they got to capture. Now, if I remember correctly, we gave episode 4. We got episode 1 for gear rating of 4 gears. We've done the same rating for the second episode, and yeah, we're basically going through each of these one at a time, and it so far seems like they've got a formula going, because it's all about trying to free the worlds that have captured. So what do you think so far of the sort of reoccurring events they seem to have in each of these episodes, Ellen?
I don't mind reoccurring events. I find that it's a lot easier to keep it going rather than change it up later on. I just think it's more how they kind of introduce new characters or how they keep it going rather than making it silly or stale. But so far, it seems to be going well. But this episode was trash.
Yeah. I like this episode. I thought it was quite nice. Now, I can understand what you mean, because they did use green screen for a lot of this, but where they obviously have the COVID pandemic, and it was probably filmed during the early stages of it, so I'm not surprised that there was a little bit of green screen used, because really it saves problems with on-location filming. Plus also, when you're doing a sort of immerse world like an ice like coated environment, it is kind of difficult to sort of have all the props and visuals there whenever you're doing a show. But I mean, obviously it's probably a production thing where it could easily be done, but during these times it makes the most sense that they use a green screen during this particular time. But I think there was a lot of good moments in it, though. It does kind of give you an idea of what they're going to be doing, though, because it's like you said, they're going to be using a green screen a lot at the moment, but it kind of makes sense with the sort of story they're going with, because they're constantly switching it up with different dimensions, basically infecting the world they're in and causing transformations, and having all these different environments and stuff would cost a lot of money if it wasn't done digitally, as you've seen.
Mm.
But just from like the environments you've seen so far, because I was expecting a lot of Sentai worlds or something like that along the lines of popping up in each episode. So what did you think of all of these environments that they're coming up with, and what do you think about how they look, how realistic some of them may be, and then others may not be as good quality? But tell us what you think, Callum.
I kind of think it's more because this kind of links in. Like I understand about the COVID. Like obviously this was shot probably very beginning wise and stuff like that. So I kind of understand that they had to film it. I think it's more you can film on a green screen but make it look like it's part of the movie or part of the thing. It just feels very out of place for what it was. And I think to kind of add into it, where later on in the episode where they all meet up and they morph and stuff like that, like they keep slipping and whoa, whoa, and there's nothing on the floor. Yeah, again, if they had some sort of like spray, I think that could have worked a bit to kind of make you think, oh, that's fine, rather than just be like, well, I just imagine people doing the Star Trek where it's like, nah, and then there's literally the camera's like straight and there's no shaking, and they put it in afterwards. So for what it was not bad. Locations are good because obviously they've got the parking lot and they've got the other parking lot C, and then parking lot E. So, but yeah, like I think the location's fine. I think it's just very off-putting. And one thing that I notice is when you look at the character and you see a fuzzy green ring, it's like, oh, they didn't get it all. Oh, but I know how hard it is, so I give them a little bit of props. But what did you think?
Yeah, where you're saying about like the environments in sort of like car parks and whatnot, I did like how they used enclosed locations. Like they had the sauna as one location in this particular episode. So they did, and they have tried like various other enclosed room shots. So I think they have kind of mixed up a bit, so you don't see as much of the green screen as you usually would. But just before we go into sort of like the episode as a whole, and then start talking about our favourite parts, let's see who's in the chat quickly. Can you quickly see who's in there for us, Erilyn?
We have Blackwing. Hello, Blackwing. He says, "You guys, hope you're doing well. I watched the episode earlier today. It was great. Can't wait until all 5 are assembled." And then we have Field Mask Food Ray Dax. Field Mask Food Ray Dax. Zenkaiger awesome. He also says, much better if Zenkaiger gold. Much better if Zenkaiger changed gold thing for some season rangers. And then he also asks, much better if Zenkaiger change honed rangers all season Sentai rangers. So I'm guessing he wants all the Sentai rangers and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, if you have all the Sentai Rangers, it does come off a bit more like Gokaiger, so I think they are trying to transfer that a bit. When he was saying about the gold thing, I think he's saying about how gold is used as a colour for items and general appearance quite often. I can see what you're saying with that. They do try to mix it up, but gold does seem to be a dominant colour. But yeah, gold works with a lot of things though, the changer especially. There is gold detailing on it and the gears are gold, but then you have the changer that's like fully red. They do try to go for their like most used colours and whatnot. So yeah, they try to switch it up, but yeah, it's hard to make something look really good and metallic without using those colours that associate with metal, such as gold and silver. So yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. Yeah. See, there is a lot more we could sort of discuss though about the episode itself. So, as we know, we've already got Kaito, Juran, and Gawon, and then we're introduced to our first character, another ranger into this, which is Zenkai Majin. Now, what did you think of Majin when you first saw this episode, her characteristics and whatnot?
I think each one has the characteristics. So I knew that she was going to be very magic based. And I knew when first seeing her, one of them's going to piss her off and go, magic stupid, blah, blah, blah. And you know that she'd like erupt. And I knew like as soon as Guy, I don't like him. And there's a reason why I don't like him. But when he was just like, oh, I don't care about magic. Magic's stupid. You're like, oh, you set her off. But I generally like her as a character. I feel like she's going to be my favorite one because her character design, the look, is really spot on, and I know what Japan's like. Female robots gonna milk that one for a long time. But I like her character. I like the fact that she's very like magical based, and she turns into a goddamn freaking dragon.
Yeah, everyone loves dragons.
Everyone loves dragons. Does the chat
But
love dragons? That's the question.
yeah, do let us know in the comments below if you are seeing this offline, and do keep messaging us while you're on here live. And thank you so much for joining us here today, just doing this right now.
Yep.
But yeah, I think the highlights obviously of this season are this season are definitely the reoccurring elements they're having in this. So I've picked up on probably 3 reoccurring events. They use the special gears that they get from previous Ranger teams in each episode. When they're introducing a character, there's the accidental shot, and we'll get back to that bit in a bit. And then we also have the debuting like mecha and machines that are also part of this particular team. Yeah, is there any like one part of this show you're not liking and could be better?
I don't think there's any parts I don't like. I think the only thing that annoyed me was the accidental shot this time, because I wanted I'm glad it's there. I just really wish it kept it like he had a bad guy, even if it was the main bad guy and she shot him. I felt like that was a trope, but again, if they don't do it with the last one, I'm gonna be pissed. But I like the whole thing. It's like, oh, accidental shot, and it's always so basically how you morph is you put the gear in. Oh yeah, that's it. Spin it round and then shoot. It's like, got it. But also, I don't know if you noticed that when they were in sync, Juran and Guion, they have their kind of sync, and Majin and Kaito, they were in perfect sync as well. So I think it depends on syncing wise, will that stay the same, or will that kind of like change a little bit later on?
Yeah, I think the whole idea of Zenkaiger in general, as well as Kaito as a character, is so that he is the sort of person that those that are part of his team he syncs well with. That's why he's able to be good friends, and that's why he's able to lead them. I think that's the general aesthetic they're going for him. But yeah, let's go right into the actual images and stuff, and go talk about like our particular favorite moments, because we can do that at the same time as actually saying what happened in each of these episodes. So, well, in this episode, shall we say. Okay.
I just have to catch up. Goddamn stream. Time to catch up.
It's so slow. We're trying to watch ourselves.
I know, right? I can hear myself. Oh, I can't. I've muted it, but I could hear myself. Right,
we got the first image here where we've got Kaito. We got the grandma as well, which I believe is Yak-chan. Yeah, we've got Yak-chan, got Kaito, we got Juran, and we've got Gao-on, our first sort of like characters that we've seen. Now, I always found this particular scene very odd and weird, because I'm pretty sure he used biscuits in this. Well, cookies, biscuits, wherever you're from, same lingo. They used it in a sandwich. I was like, how can that be nice?
Have you never had a biscuit in between 2 pieces of bread? If the answer is no, go have some ginger nuts and some bread.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone picked up what particular biscuit is in there, but it looked like one of those those like not jammy Dodgers, but those biscuits where it has the jam and cream in the middle, and it's got that sort of like star look. I swear it was one of those. Like if anyone in the chat or comments actually knows what biscuit it was, but I swear it was that kind of biscuit. But if you know what I'm talking about, that is. It's very weird.
When I saw the food, I generally thought it was just like onion rings. Like,
yeah.
Let me double check. I didn't pick up on biscuits. Normally, I'm very kind of like I pick up on biscuits really well because I love biscuits.
But yeah, with I think the relationships that we have in between these characters is really nice. The only thing that kind of grinds me a little bit is just how Gao-on is not quite accepting to the other Kikonoids, but I think that makes a lot of sense considering he likes squishy things.
I'm gonna call it now. guarantee probably later on in the series, Jiren will either sacrifice himself for him, say he's like,
yeah.
"Oh, I'm your friend," and he's like, "Jiren, no!" and then, or he saves him in some sort of way, and then the whole coldness and like, "Oh, I don't like you," turns in an instant, I can't get rid of him, and I hate him even more. So I think that's going to happen. It'll be one of those two.
Yeah, potentially. Well, to be honest, out of these four that you see here, aside from the grammar, who has a great qualities, I actually quite like Gowon's personality.
Wait till you see the film.
It's just the way he's sort of like, he may not be the same as like accepting as all the others, but on the plus side, he is sort of like that caring personality, and he does have that sort of flair about him that I just think is so so nice, and it's just one of those characters where it's like, if you like everything, it probably doesn't distinguish you as much of a character as like things that make you a little bit off.
Yeah, I get what you mean. He shows the very characteristics of a cat. Obviously, he is a cat, but
Yes.
rather than like, if a cat likes one person, then they'll kind of like push everyone else away, and they won't like him as much. So I think maybe that's like a personality trait that he's got within himself.
Oh yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next one, where we've got a little bit of Sek-chan here. Like, he seems to be more of an announcer. He doesn't seem to interact with the characters as much. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I think that they're going through the whole Navi thing, where Navi never really did the same thing. It's more like, look at this Super Sentai. This Super Sentai does this, and like, I'm going to help you, and I'm going to do this. And I think that's what it is. I think he's more there for the way of like, oh, do you know this Super Sentai? Or it's like, yeah, they're ninjas, so therefore they use ninja powers, and then that's it. Or it's just like, there's something downtown. I think that's particularly it. So I think that's the sort of character that he is. But what we should be talking about is that poster behind him saying, "Drink more water."
Well, that's probably a good thing to do, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it's an unusual shop they seem to be in, because I think it is a store, aren't they? I don't know if it's a home or a store.
It's a candy shop that they're in.
Yeah.
So
it's weird how they have a nice table and everything set out, but I suppose culturally it's a lot different there. So maybe that's the sort of thing they have, like little dinings for sweets.
Yeah. I think if you're going for the culture thing, I think maybe it's because you can't. I don't think people like seeing in Japan like eating in the streets. It's considered really rude. So if you're having a McDonald's over there, well,
don't eat outside
or at home.
Got
But
it.
yeah, I think it's more. I think because in the first episode they showed like kids going in, so maybe it's one of those things where they can have parties or stuff, or maybe it is a combination of house and sweet shop. So they just go, well, yeah, you can eat your sweets here, or you can sit in color, you can do what you want, or maybe like they don't have a big enough upstairs for a dining room table, so they go down and eat sweets and have their food.
Yeah. I always wondered like why they didn't embrace the whole COVID situation, because it's kind of a state of the times, isn't it? I mean, on one side you don't want to be reminded about it, on the other side you don't want to sort of become unimmersed in this world by having the same problem you have in real life in the show. But I kind of like the idea of they still having that sort of element to it, because to me it does seem like a key moment in time that we have this whole COVID and wearing the masks and stuff like that. I wish they could have embraced that a little bit more in the episode, but that's just me. Okay, so here we got the actual villains. I like how the names of the villains seem to just be obvious, like because of the dimensional world they're supposedly using the powers from. They're just called Ice World.
I imagine them sitting down. I think, right, we've got 45 monsters. I really can't be bothered like naming them, so we just call them Mushroom World, Ice World, Catman, Cat World. Everything's world at the end, and I was just like, I kind of like that, because when you start pronouncing like Japanese bad guys, it's a lot harder. So I love it when they're so easy. So if he's called Ice World, I'm okay with that because then I can just go, well, the monster for this one's Fire World, so I'm okay with that. It just makes things easier.
Easy to remember, yeah. And less complicated with the names as well, which is great for me. But yeah, I see we have. I honestly thought hang on.
See?
Barashitara was actually a sort of like uh, regular foe. I didn't actually realize he was a general, so that was my mistake from the first episode when he first appeared. But I suppose, stuff like that is easy to mistake for, especially since episode 1 didn't really debut them using the gears for each of these monsters to attack this particular world. So, yeah.
The best way I can ever look at it is if they're in the main base at the very beginning, they are the generals or they're the bad guys. If they suddenly turn up outside the base and they're not there and the main villain doesn't recognize them, cannon fodder. They're going to be done. They're going to be done in the first episode.
Yeah. I quite like the idea. I quite like Barashitara because of the fact he looks like his own personal fort. Like he has that nice design to it. I wonder if the designs of each of these main villains though are based upon particular technological advancements, because you've got like this guy who's basically his own fort. You've got Ilgerud, who is practically a tank. That's in itself its own specific moment in time. And then you've got the king, who's literally a wall. That's a significant in technology, isn't it?
I think they go for it. Like, I think that they sit down and they design like the bad guys, all of them. But yeah, it does look right. You can see it like coming out, but maybe it's like gears in a tank, gears in a wall. What I'm very surprised at, I've just thought of it now, is normally in Sentai there's like 3 or 4 different bad guys in the area, but there's only 2. Well, technically there's 3, but for generals and stuff, there's only 2, which is maybe again because of COVID they can't have multiple people in it, but it's still it's a breath of fresh air in some way of having a small army compared to having like 6 or 4 generals just wanting to kill people.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be a bit tricky from this point forward trying to figure out what kind of worlds are going to appear, because we've already got some basic ones like Mushroom World and Ice World, so it's going to be very difficult to guess what could be simplified to be a world. Like, but they might even have like certain ones that are species. They might go for elementals, like you said, with fire. But yeah, it's going to get harder as we go on, I think. Okay, so we got that one. So yeah, seeing Majin in this, what did you think of Majin's concept compared to the others?
I think she's cute. Would 100% go there. Her concept again is it's the magic-based user. So that she's at the very beginning. Like you'll see the progression, and if they do it right, they'll give her a lot of character development. Where at the very beginning she's going to be like, "Oh, I can't use this. This is new to me." At the middle, you'll see her going like, "I can use this. I can do this," and then at the very end, she'll be like, boom, I'm a fully on main user. So like in this picture here, you can tell that she's very passionate about it, because Guyon turns around and goes like, "Oh, I don't believe this," and then she goes off and like she explodes because it's a passion. Be the same thing as if you turn around to him and when all like animals are crap, and then he'd be like, "No," type thing. So I can see her becoming a very passionate user, and I think that she is still one of my favorite characters so far, because she's got that cute element, but then she's got this fiery element, and like even her design wise, aesthetically, it's again pleasing. I think it's mainly like it's the eyes, because each one I think is exactly the same. I don't know if Durin's eyes are green as well, but it's like everything's smooth, everything's normal, and I just generally physically like it. So if they bring out a toy of her, 100% would buy. Yeah,
I like how this particular character has more of a relation to the powers she ends up obtaining, because obviously she's a fortune teller. That's what she's described and given to us as, in terms of why she seems to be best to have the magic power. So magic power. But there's 3 things I'd like to specifically talk about her. Firstly, I think it was quite interesting how they're trying to have a magic element to it to make it seem like this is the perfect way to lead to this character, because it was through the fortune telling that lead, through the horoscope that Kaito received from the TV that is able to meet her, but then it was just happened by chance to come across her, and she actually ends a fortune teller. So I thought that was a nice little link to it. But I think the most important little character aspect, which I've really liked the creators doing, was how they introduced her as knowing Duran, because she was looking for someone who was familiar, and she found Duran, who actually used to be a next door neighbor.
Yeah.
I never thought there was going to be any form of connection between these guys other than coming from the same world. So what did you think about this connection, about her being from the same neighborhood as Duran?
See, when I watched it originally, I thought it was like I love him, and he's going to be my husband at some point. And then when I rewatched it earlier today, it was like, oh no, they are friends and stuff, and she wants to do it. And I like that sort of connection, and you can see it later on where Kaito says, "Oh, you're now going to join the team," and he's like, "No, no, what you're not, you're not." So obviously there's a big there, and obviously Duran's character is, I'm the older man, I'm the guardian. So I think that with their connection being there, it's nice because again it forms a lot of solidarity, and it's more kind of, I know you're my friend, so at least I've got someone in this world that I can depend on. Because in like when they start talking, she's like, "I'm so glad you're here. I'm happy that you're there." And then when it's like, "Oh, you can come out," she's like, "Oh, I don't know, no, 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 no." And I like that because it was more for her going, "I don't know what these guys are like, so I don't know what to do," but she feels safer, and you'll see that there'll be more connection between those two compared to, like, say, Kaito, Vrum, or Guyon at any point.
Yeah, yeah. I think what you were saying about the age was probably actually a good point to make, simply because of the fact that, like, she's supposed to be like the kid sister of
Mm.
all of this. Like, she is like the little sister character. But I don't know if you noticed how these characters seem to be designed as if they're the age in Super Sentai. Like, you
Mm.
notice that Jiran's quite the oldest, and that's based on the 12th season, if I'm correct, which is Zyuranger. You got obviously you've got Gal Ranger was the 20th anniversary, so he's kind of like, so you got Gowon as the more like a teenager, and then you've
Mm.
got Majin and maybe probably Rune as well, who's quite the sort of like younger child. So I wonder if they based these characters not only on the sort of, you know,
Mm.
people that they sort of represent, because they are based on different Super Sentai actors in ways, but also if they have actually based them on the age, sort of like, in the era of where they're from, the time of where they're
Mm.
supposed to represent. What do you think
Yeah.
of that theory, Aaron?
I would say I want to agree, but then Kaito would be 45. Because he's got 45 on his helmet. I can
Well,
see.
he's new. It's more to do with the duration of where they're from, rather than, because he represents the now. Kaito represents the now, whereas the others, the further back you go, the sort of
Oh, okay.
older the characters become.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I think like there is a certain age to them. Um, I kind of think that these guys would be as same as like other Sentai teams. So I would always kind of assume that they are mid 20s, 20, like 24, 25 as they go in. So I kind of see him around that age because you also see Majin as a little girl, and I that kind of caught me off guard because I generally thought she would be that age. So it shows that they can grow up. So it's weird that they've got expanding metal inside them,
Yeah.
but I kind of think that they'd be around about, I'd say, I'd say around about 20s each one, because I think that would make a little bit more sense. But could be the fact that the numbers on their foreheads when they morph is that's the certain age range that they're from, or that could be, as you said, like as you said.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, the Gold Ranger from Q Ranger is a living robot, so maybe they've got a similar sort of biology to him rather than anyone
Mm.
else. So, I mean, you can have organic robots, it is possible, it's just a different basis. Obviously, that's just going by fan logic. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So this particular scene I think you enjoyed because it was when they were having difficulty with treading in the first place, and it's ice, you're gonna slip. So them gliding past, what made you think this was like one of your favourite moments in this?
I've got to see the picture because there's two pictures that made me laugh. Oh, come
It's
on,
where
Steve.
it's where they're just sort of skating past as they're trying to go into battle. This is before they met Majin, by the way.
Oh, okay, so the skating thing was something slightly different. I generally thought it was okay, but I think it was more. I picked this one up because of the green screen and stuff like that. Yeah. Oh no, it's the slippery thing. No, this is the one thing that annoyed me because I understand that it's like whoa type thing. I think it was because it was overdone, and I think again it's the green screen. But then again, I think maybe what kind of puts me off it is the fact that maybe the characters aren't to scale. So it either needs to be a little bit bigger, or yeah, I think it needs to be a little bit bigger because if, like, say for example, if you're walking down that road, it
Yeah.
just wouldn't match up. I think that's what kind of got me. But it was one of those things of like, oh, don't be a silly Sentai, don't be a silly Sentai.
Well,
That's it. But,
I kind of liked how there was silliness involved because you're going with these different environments. I'm not surprised there's certain terrains and stuff they're having difficulty with, and sometimes that can provide some rather humorous effects. I think they found it correct. Yes, when the general was about to go into battle, he just slipped and fell over instead. I thought that was great.
I mean, I like that sort of stuff. Like, I think if it's done properly, then it can be really well done. So like they know that there's ice, so yeah, obviously you're going to
Yeah.
slip. But I think it was more kind of I slip, I forget, I slip, I forget. I think that got me a tiny bit where you think they'd be more like, right, well, we've got to figure this out rather than Majin coming later and going, spikes on your shoes. You know, if they put chains on there, I would have gone, okay, you're thinking. But then if they kept slipping, so yeah, you can see the green screen. Oh, you can see the green on there. Oh, um, yeah, like it wasn't too bad, but I did find it like a little bit funny that they just kept slipping up, and that, it obviously shows the element of the power. But then you think the bad guys wouldn't slip over because maybe it was bad ice, and bad ice doesn't allow good guys to step on it.
Yeah, yeah. I quite like having these like little points to the fact that I don't think any of these characters are really prepared for what these particular worlds have included in them. So
Mm.
having these little flaws where even the bad guys are tripping over or causing themselves some sort of like failure to perform is quite hilarious to
Mm.
me. Let's go on to the next one. So, oh, this is what I forgot because obviously I said about reoccurring events. So accidentally shooting, which obviously might disappear once they've all been introduced, using new gears and stuff, and obviously having you know the mechas and stuff shown. But having the stump of the fist from the king, I think, is a really good sort of like thing to talk about because he has it seems to happen every time. It just sort of gets ticked off. Dung, they go
Mm.
straight up. What do you think
That's
of
it.
this, Salem?
Oh yeah, like I hope that these are little traits I want to see in all the time, where you can tell that he's got immense power already. So if he's literally going boom and they're going quite high, it just shows that he's got a more, how do I say, he's got more power than anything. So either he stays in the wall or loses his strength. But it's nice to see consistencies. So I do hope that they keep it in. I think I kind of graced over this when I first did it, but it does show a thing of like, I want this done, do what I say type thing, which means that the others are just going to be like, well, we can fly in the air.
Yeah.
So I bet they're heavy to pick up.
I do think you see more of the characters of of the particular villains in this particular episode, just because you got King, who's basically giving them free reign of what they want to do, because they seem to be quite civil with each other. I guess that's because of their success. Maybe
Mm.
he'll start getting really angry at them and start treating them badly once they start failing more. If they start failing more,
Yeah.
spoilers.
We know
But
it's going to
yeah, I
happen. We
think
know it's going to happen.
yeah, I think what Barashitara was sort of saying about Gegi just being a sort of bird that flies around as just a pet. I thought that was kind of interesting because I wondered if he was just built to be a pet or if he actually earned his place on his shoulder. Well, or at least inside his particular slot.
Yeah. See,
So
I wanted this one to be like the Battle of the Birds. So, C-chan knows about the Super Sentai, where I wanted this one to know more about the bad guys. So,
Yeah.
like, if, say, for example, they called Basco, or a character like a power like Basco, and be like, oh, this is from the 35th Super Sentai. Basco was this, and he was a bad guy, but he had the ability to do this, and then you'd have the monster. Where C-chan would be like, oh, 35 years Super Sentai, go Kaijas, and then you'd find out. I think that would have been a really good kind of addition. And I hope he's just not I'm here on your shoulder for the sake of I'm just a bird. Like, I want more from it. And you kind of saw it at the very beginning. And obviously we're only in episode 3 so far, so I kind of want to see more.
yeah.
But I hope it's just not a gimmick where it's like, you can now buy this toy because you can do.
Yeah, I honestly think that Sek-chan and Geki will sort of Geki will serve a greater sort of task or ability later on down the line. I think there's more to these characters than we're seeing yet. Like, it might just be that Geki will become a mighty foe later on down the line, like Impus was in Lightspeed Rescue, or his counterpart was, shall I say, in Go-Go 5. So you might have some form of evolution, but then you might have Sek-chan who might actually become part of the gear. He might have his own super like ability that go with the with this particular team. So Zenkai, special or something like that. Some sort of power up. I imagine there is more to Sek-chan, but we'll have to wait and see.
I reckon the same. I reckon it would be very cool if they both turned into like ultimate weapons or ultimate gears where they combine together. That would throw me. Not if it was more the bad guy one. That would throw me more. Be like, oh, I didn't see that one coming. But we know the Sek-chan is going to be like, I am actually the catalyst that brings you all together. Bye, and then he turns into dust or energy and floats away.
I am interested to see what everyone else thinks of the villains actually, because there is a lot of like scale differences between these particular villains more than any others I've seen before. Because it's more like the bigger you are, the higher up on the food chain.
Yeah, I'm a giant wall. I have a giant bird. The others are expendable.
Right, let's move on to the next one. So, skating down on those, like, I never would have thought of doing this. Like, this was a great idea for getting around. I don't know why I didn't think of sleighing. Sledging all the way down these sort of like icy roads and stuff to get around was a brilliant idea. And I thought it just added a little bit of not only humor, but it just seemed smart to me. It was stupidly brilliant to do this. I thought it was quite funny, and they just casually going by. It was a nice shot. What did you think of this particular event, Erlem?
I like it. Like, just thinking about it then, I really wish like this entire episode, like, if you go back to the thing where they first meet Maggie and she's like, I don't want to see you, like, she doesn't help them. And then when we come to my favorite part in a bit, that's the only time you see her. But I like the fact sledging would get away. Like, I thought maybe they use skis or something, but the whole kind of sledding works a lot better in my sort of eyes. It's a good way to get about. Again, I think that it just gets me is that scene. I think maybe it doesn't look realistic enough, and I think that's what gets me.
Yeah, I think the snow effects with the ice was a bit of a challenge for the creators, so maybe they couldn't quite get it in. I think the colours of the particular characters, they should have maybe toned it down with some grayscaling involved, or bluing of the visuals, but that would take away from the performance. Well, not the performance, but the appearance. And for debuting characters such as Zenkai Majin, it probably wouldn't be a good step to take. But yeah, I see what you're saying. But in essence, I think ice is really tricky to sort of deal with in terms of being something to fight against. So having magic involved as a combat against ice does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What do you think, Erlen?
I do. I think it is a very hard thing. I think if you put like a bit of blue tone over it, I think you give the impression that it's cold. It doesn't have to be like a deep blue, but you could have put like a grey filter with a tint of blue just to show that it is cold. Maybe that is the thing with you've got the different colors that kind of say, hey, you've got bright pink compared to blue or white. I think it's also, again, it is hard, but I feel like you could maybe they could have cornered something off, in the street, because obviously if this was filmed at the very beginning of where COVID was, then I think that you could turn around and go, well, actually, we've got an entire street that we could do because no one's going to be around, or it could have been filmed, or they could have built it themselves.
Yeah.
Um, I think, but I mean, looking at Maggie, god damn, she's cute. But I think also the color works quite well. It stands out. Your attention is drawn to them, even with Jura and Guyon as well. Your attention is drawn to them. I just love the fact that she's just got a crystal ball all the time, and she's like, "Well, it's the one thing I need in my hand right now."
Yeah, all those different adventures. I do like how, even though it didn't really lead to anything, there was some positiveness that Kaito added to it. I think that's generally his role, to sort of twist things and see the bright side of everything. Did you think that's, did you think these adventures that they were having going to these different locations was fun?
I think it's typical Sentai. I think it's to the point where the only reason why they made them was so you have what happens with when she blows up a guy on a lot. I think that's the only difference. The reason why is like we go to this location, it failed. We go to this location, it's failed. This location failed, and then it's like, oh, I don't believe in magic. I think it's stupid. And then it's like, what? How dare you? I think then it builds up to show it's a backstory thing, because Guyon, I think, like, because he hates the others, I think he'd be more like, well, I don't know if he'd be like, oh, I believe in what you believe in a bit, but I think it was just generally a story filler type thing. That's what I kind of thought.
Well, I do like the concept of it. Like, it was a nice way to introduce Magian, because all of these sort of like random events and adding this sort of snowy world, I think they did try to focus all of this particular episode into a magic theme, and like you said, it did come off a bit kind of sketchy, but I thought it was quite a fun episode compared to what possible things they could have gone with doing a magic theme for an episode. Okay, so once again we're going to the actual morphs again. So seeing the transformation from their normal forms into their ranger forms, I still love these helmets and stuff. Like, I think the only one that looks out of place really is Zenkaiger, because compared to the robot forms, he's got a lot less detailing. I think that might be because he is generally supposed to be based on the Sentai teams that don't have actual mechas. They only have more like vehicles. So that's probably the design choice from them. But it would have been nice if he had a lot more detail like the others. What did you think of their particular appearance?
I think when it comes to his helmet, I think to me it looks more Kamen Rider, and I think this is a big major point to it, where he may be a combination between was it not Akared, Abared. Was there Abared? I might.
It's
basically
yeah, I think you're thinking Aka Ranger and Big One.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing that you get. I think that's what they're trying to do it, but I think it's the big V thing that just reminds me too much of Kamen Rider, and the fact is that most of his attacks are kick based. So I think that they wanted to try something new, which is by all means fine, but I feel like the rest have more detail in the helmet. And one thing that I think annoys me is the silver thing goes way too up into where the eyes are. If it was just below, I think that would look a tiny bit better. But every single time I just think it's Kamen Rider with Super Sentai elements to it.
Well, it's funny you say that, because obviously the creator of the whole sort of Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, it generally was in the beginning similar concept, because it was back in those days it wasn't that different to have Kamen Rider and Super Sentai looking similar, because I think he was sort of slowly developing until they branched out. But obviously, Kamen Rider was supposed to be singular, and Super Sentai was team based, so I think that was the only real sort of difference between them back then. But I think where it's supposed to look more like Aka Ranger, and having that sort of, I think it's more like a V than antenna. So I think that's the whole purpose of that design. So yeah, for him it does work, but I think one of the key things that you see amongst all of them now that I didn't even notice at first, like I said before, is the numbering, and I think that's such a fantastic detail to have on their foreheads. What did you think? What did you think when you first saw that? When you got a closer look?
I generally like it. I like little things like this because it does show, hey, you know, this is the year I'm from. This is the, or I'm the, not the year I'm from. This is the where I am in the series. So having it like say, oh, I'm the 16th season, I'm the 25th season, I'm the 45th. I like this sort of like little attentions to detail. Like Gokaiger didn't have it. And I can't remember what the next anniversary season after that, like I think maybe Zooja or something, or Ninja, but they didn't have anything that kind of stood out. This one is definitely saying, hey, look, I have numbers on my head. So it works a lot better. And it's like you don't see anyone below 16. It's always like 16 upwards, which is a nice kind of touch. You know, I think it stands out and it makes it different for the helmets, I think.
I think, you know, what you're saying actually rang a bell with me, because compared to Gokaiger was all about reusing, like, this is the powers of this particular team. We're using that in their suits and using the gifts they had when these form, and, you know, just going back to all these previous teams and Rangers. Like, I think that was more of the fact, really. They were just sort of reusing each individual Ranger. So nothing really needed to be showcased in a numbering or anything of that kind, because it was just about showing them in their, you know, as they are. This particular show, Zenkaiger, seems to be representing them instead. Like each of the powers that they're getting is representing a team, rather than they're using the powers specific that each of these rangers actually had. Because obviously you didn't see them. I mean, you saw them using these particular abilities, but it wasn't always the case that the Gokaigers could actually use their abilities whenever they want. They had to be in this ranger form to use the abilities. So yeah, I think this is more about representation than reusability in terms of previous Super Sentais. So is there any particular ranger that you think stands out from all the previous teams that you would actually like to see represented in this show?
If I was to see representation, I would generally like to see maybe some of the seasons that don't get as much love. Like, I mean, you got pretty much some of them, but like, I don't know. Like, I would say maybe the fact is that they've chosen, like, say, they chose Bokanger, Magi Ranger, Gaio Ranger, or Gaio, whatever it is, and then, well, Dew Ranger is a popular one, but they're the seasons that no one really kind of looks at. Like, they never say, well, I want to see Wild Force, for example. You know, I want to see Mystic Force. You know, the more popular ones would be Time Force or like Ninja Storm or something like that. So I think that this is like a very nice representation how like say Time Ranger would be like kind of introduced, because I obviously they're from the future, so I would see it as very kind of futuristic. But when you look at that, like the helmets and stuff, I think that you would see the main Megazord from that one. And I think that would be the way forward. But I think that would just be like a really cool design. Anything that looks mech, or I'd love to see Kaka Ranger with a ninja helmet. I think that would look spot on. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. I think one thing that I would like to see in general, though, is all of these powers seem to be represented as a whole. And that's whenever these particular rangers use them, are the main Zenkaigers. So whenever they use the coin, it's basically the same power. But a lot of the Sixth Rangers seem to have their own unique power. So I wonder if any additional Rangers we're going to have in this show, if they use the coin, they're going to actually use that particular Rangers, the Sixth Rangers, as power, as a representation of what they're able to do. Because, you know, there is some particular seasons, like, off the top of my head, you've got Ninja using like storm-based elements for his attacks, and also you've got in Shinkenja, you've got the Gold Samurai, the Gold Ranger, who's able to use Barracuda Blade, and slicing quite quick. So, seeing the Sixth Ranger use these coins and having different abilities would make sense to me. What do you think to that theory?
I think that they will. I think what will happen is when, like, say, the Gold Ranger, whatever the Sixth Ranger comes in, he will have access to all the past. So if he uses Gosei Knight or whatever, I think what you'll see is that that'll be to that Ranger, because they showed it in episode 1 where it was just like, oh, like Kaito goes off and he uses Zoolja, where Jiren turns around and he uses Ninja, and it's whoever uses it. So I think that you'll see it goes like, he'll pull up the disc and it'll have like Gosei Knight, they'll slap it in, and you'll see Gosei Knight pose, and then he'll gain the ability of like the blaster or something like that with the Barracuda Blade and stuff like within Shinkenger. I think it will literally be like he'll use the speed, and you'll see that going on. I think that would be a great way. So I think that he'll have his powers separately, very similar to how in Gokaiger, Guy used Six Ranger powers only. He didn't really use like a red key, like a main team key or anything like that. So I think they'll probably go with that sort of trend. So I think I would agree with you.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
okay. That's there was me thinking of just going up on one. Okay, let's look at actually Imagine itself, like Zenkai Imagine as she first appears in her, Ranger suit. This Kikanoid has a very nice design. I'm not too sure if the particular helmet looks as good as the others do. I like how, it's basically the same as the Magi Rangers mecha. You got all of the appearances there. I like how it reminds me a lot of Magi Sprite, the main mecha. Although as we know it's a fairy. Sorry, it's a fairy. I keep forgetting. In Mystic Force it was a sprite. In Magi Ranger it was a fairy. But I like how the Dragon Wings kind of look like the same design, as if they're still incorporating the Pink Ranger from that particular show, rather than just highlighting the Megazord and focusing on the Red Rangers and the design of those. What do you think of Zenkai Imagine, Alan?
See, I like the design a lot, and I've just quickly looked up, and I think I know why it may look a bit off. It's all the others don't have mouths, and she does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to get to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that if you took out the mouth part, it would fit with the rest. And I think that's the only thing, because none of them have mouths, and not unless we see what the thing, like what the Six Ranger is going to be. He could have an exact same. He could have a mouth, but I think that's what it is. It's like all the rest have like green eyes. They start sparkling, but when you see it, the mouth, it's off-putting, like it's smiling at you. So I don't know why the costumes, the people thought, you know what, let's just give her a mouth, not the others. Because like even when you look at the Kikanoids, they don't have mouths, and she doesn't. So it's kind of just very weird. Well, no, they do have mouths because they do eat, but in Ranger form that they don't. So I think that's the main thing. I like the design because it is Magi Ranger. It's not overly sexualized as well. Like she doesn't have big ones. But it's more in proportion.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Don't need them.
You know what the Japanese are like. I think it reminds me more a lot of Magi Ranger. Like it could feel like this is the pink fairy bums there and there. I just wish that they got rid of the mouth. I think that would have been a thing. Like they can't really take it away now. And I like that she's got wings. So I imagine if she gets really pissed off, wings go up type thing.
Yeah.
But
I think, sorry if you don't mind me interjecting. I think when you're saying about the mouth, there's two things that I think is very odd about the design. One, for the main mechas of Zhu Ranger and Gal Ranger, the Megazord actually has a mouth like detailing on there. So I think it's just Gal Ranger that actually has that. Sorry. But yeah, I think it's very odd how they've gone for this one particular ranger that has that design in the mecha and using it here and not on the others. And then the other thing is maybe it's because it's female. That's probably what they're thinking. They're going to give her a little bit of a twist, so that's why they've gone for the lips design. But yeah, sorry, you as you were saying before.
I was just saying, but I still like the design. I still like her. She's my favorite.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a nice sleek design, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think her detailing does come out really nicely, and the hat it definitely is a significant part. But they've managed to keep it both feminine and to do like the detailing is as close as they can get to the mecha as possible from Magi Ranger. So I really do like that too.
Just shame there's a Japanese stuntman in that.
Let's move on to the next one. So her powers, I actually quite like that. It's weirdly how overwhelming her powers might possibly be, but I imagine they're going to tame that down. But I like how her weapon is more of a sort of like enchantress staff rather than a close combat melee weapon. I do like that, and it kind of goes with her. Cause it's got like an orb design which you don't really see because it's all pink, and it kind of looks a lot like the orb that she kind of uses for her fortune telling. So what do you think about Majin's abilities and her weapons?
It's just all magic based. It's what you would expect from any magic based user, from a healer to use black magic and stuff like that in video games. Is if she didn't have a staff in some sort of way, I would have really kind of questioned it. And obviously, she's the sort of person from that's going to be attacked from afar rather than kind of up close, where the weapon is still practical, but her abilities will be here is magic based. We're going to use magic. I'm going to summon this. I'm going to do this, and I think that's the main kind of like cause for it. So that's why they've used it, and I think it works well. I think she's going to be a decent magic user, and the staff's not too big or too large, which is good, or small. A large there.
Right, I'd like to know what everyone else thinks as well. Like anything about what we've already previously talked about, whether it be Zenkai Majin herself or any of the characters that we've previously discussed. It would be great to hear what you think. I think Tokyuja, the use of this particular power in this episode, really made me excited because I love Tokyuja so much. It's my favorite season. And I thought it was quite smart how they used it as sort of more like a team-based power because they're coupling together and then charging. Now, I know they didn't really... I mean, they kind of have that ability in a way, but I don't think they had that sort of velocity involved in their power. Like, it wasn't one of their things. So, symbolizing it as such was really smart, and I think it was really good for them to do because I don't think... Other than obviously having train-based swords and having weapons like it and using their imagination, there wasn't anything defined about their abilities and what they could do. So seeing something like this in Zenkaiger really sort of made me happy that they're represented in in a strong way. What did you think of their powers?
I liked it because I generally kind of thought that because it's a train motion that they wanted to get momentum behind the attacks. So rather than all going off in one and shooting about left and right, it was a union attack, so they could clear out the cannon fodder and go, right, we don't need the minions. I kind of liked, and it kind of caught me off guard a bit, where they morph and then they do the Sentai type thing. I really like that because it wasn't based on, like, they didn't use the power then, but when they used it to get rid of the minions, I like that. I thought that was a really unique power. I just kind of want to see a little bit more of it, but then I was like, well, they're on ice, memento, it all works. So I was like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on quickly. Obviously, we got the debut of Zenkai Majin becoming her dragon form. I really love the design of this. You know what? I did like Gowon a lot more because I think his animation for it looked really splendid and it showed out really well. But I do think that both Majin and probably Varun as well are going to be like the more like close related to what you see on TV to their toys because in terms of proportions it looks right, it doesn't look odd at all. whereas Juran and Gowon seem to have good looking like designs, but there's just some emptiness to them in certain areas that don't think shape up well when it comes to like toy version. What did you think of Majin in her dragon form when she first appeared?
I like the dragon. Like, I found it very weird. Like, out somewhere, like they used the attack for shaved ice. I was like, that's weird. One thing I did like is, like, I like the combination. Like, I think that you will get more people. Like, when it was her and Majin and Juran, they worked as a team. Where Juran and Guyon don't work that well. It's more like Guyon hates him, so therefore it's going to always be that struggle for power. Where Majin and Juran know each other, so it's more like we can use this in attack. And I think what you'll see is either you'll see more combinations like that, and the fact that they work together a lot more. Where I think Guyon will always struggle, no matter what, and I think that's going to be a main kind of big problem in some degree. But to be fair, I generally like the combinations. I like the way that they work it together. I just want to slap Guyon in the face a few times and just say, "Get together and work as a team. Don't hate each other."
Right. I think we should move on to the mecha itself, because I've had this really nice visual that they had during this particular episode. But what did you think of the combination of the Zenkaiger, Majin, and Juran?
I like that more. That's, as I was saying, like they comboed well. I can see them working together for the long run, and I think it was a very nice kind of thing. The only thing is, I really wish that they kissed. I don't know why. Like, even if it's we've seen it's a one-off, but I would kind of like that as a mwah, and that's it. I think that would just be really, really cool. But it does look cool. I don't know why. It's like he's got a massive baseball bat, and he's like, "Don't come back to the hood." But yeah, no, I generally kind of like this. I can see them together as that combination, so that to me is absolutely fine.
Yeah, I do think that Gowon and Juran go quite well together more, but like you said, the clashing personalities does make that a bit difficult to imagine that. But one thing I should say is that I forgot to mention, I do like the weapons and how they're actually part of the body when they go into these different modes. I think that's really good. I don't know how that's going to quite work with Rune, because he doesn't kind of need that detailing. But for the others, I think having the tail for both Juran and Majin was really nice. But yeah, you can see now more of the attachments they have, because these wings that they have on Majin are more like accessories that are put on manually. Like you see on a toy, you have to sort of slide them in. But what do you think of the wings themselves, Heirloom? Do you think that's a nice detailing to have in this particular combination?
I think they look fine. I think it reminds me much of Mystic Force, or of Magi Ranger, and I kind of think it works okay. Like, it's part of the dragon. Like, if they suddenly disappeared, then I'd be like, if they turn into like a weapon later where they can just take them off and then hit, I can see that happening, and then they put them back on. So I think you could use them in a few different ways, but they're a great aesthetic. Like, they work very, very well. So I'm like more than happy to be like, do you know what? That's really, really cool. Good on you, prop designers.
Yeah, there was actually a moment in here where you were saying how you didn't quite like the CGI that they used for the like the machines and whatnot, like the dragon and whatnot, because obviously those are complicated bodies. But there was a particular part in where the mecha was fighting. I think it was particularly Zenkaiger, Juran, and Gowon, where although the fighting is generally done in those mecha suits, there was a little part in it that almost looked like it was supposed to be the suits, but it was actually CGI. Did you catch that at all?
I don't know, but let me have a quick check. I think it in general, CGI would be a lot easier to use, but obviously maybe they don't have the prop set, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, that little because I almost didn't pick it up, but I think it's worth mentioning because there is times when they've used CGI and it works perfectly. It's almost the same as using it. I think where they try to make it look too organic, that's where you kind of lose it a bit. I think they need to have that. I think they need to make sure that they do the models and their animations on the premise that it's trying to recreate someone in a suit. I think that's what they sort of need to do more of, because having those particular distinguished parts where it's not organic but instead like solid blocks is a lot nicer. What do you think, Carolyn?
Yeah. I mean, looking at it now, I think that when you have got a guy in a suit versus a CGI monster and stuff like that, or CGI Zord, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
And I think that it just looks kind of out of place for what they've got. I think that there could be a way where they could change the coloring. So it could be more, we're going to put this together, lower the texture rate, or we're going to blend in better in post. But it just looks a bit kind of like off a tiny bit. But like, I think it depends how they use it. I think that's the main question. Is if they make it shit, then they make it shit. But again, like, you could see it only happening for like a short time that they use the actual footage. Because most of the time it's like, here's what the thing can do. Let's put it in the guy in a suit. Go at it. So it's kind of, it switches between them.
All right. Yeah.
But
yeah, I do. Yeah. In essence, though, I do think the like Majin and Majin and Zhuang combination does look really nice, and I like the transforming difference that Majin has compared to the other two, because it's definitely different. A definitely different, way that it changes into the mode it needs to be when it combines. Okay, let's go on to the last part. Now, I think it's really good how Majin fortune telling actually goes a level up, because now she's got her magical powers. We're actually seeing her predict the last member joining us for this particular team. So what did you think of the side effect, and also how we've got now a little preview? We all knew it was coming, but what did you think of how her fortune telling actually comes through as actually usable in this sort of fashion?
I think that it gives them an element of surprise. So if they're saying, like, we don't know what to do, have a look at this. Like, we see that you can see spectacles. So that's going to be the main thing that they see, because they'll be like, oh, it's just a blue guy. Oh, wait, you've got spectacles that we've seen in it. I think that will kind of work well, but I want it to kind of not work at the same time.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't want them to heavily rely on it. So it's more like, oh, we've now seen the next member who's going to be this. How are we going to defeat this bad guy? Where you saw her all the way through the series going, oh, this doesn't work, until it was like, you've got to join them. So I kind of hope that it's not a main kind of feature. It's a nice element, but I kind of think, what will they use? I mean, one thing that I do kind of, I did pick up, and this is when I reviewed it, it's when Vroon looks at the thing and you see like the ice coming out of the gear and exploding, but it's going off, it doesn't disappear. So I kind of think that when you're going to have the last bad guy, like the last big fight, it's going to be, I can pick all these abilities because I have access to them. And I think that's going to cause it, because he starts running away for no reason.
Yeah.
I mean, even like, cause I haven't seen it with that part with the subs, and I'm just seeing it now. It's like, oh no, the world's been liberated. So I think he's just going to grab it, and then that's it. Or will he be like, will Vroom like dick them all over, and then be like, ha, I've sold you out.
I reckon Vroom's going to be more like an informant. So like, where he knows so much behind the scenes because he's treated as an invisible staff member. He's going to be the one to tell the others. I mean, it's just prediction, but he must be the one to tell the others that by doing what they're doing, they're actually freeing all the worlds that have been captured, and it will probably give them a lot more information about what's actually going on. So I think Vroon is a vital part, but we'll have to wait and see the next episode to see how it all turns out. Right. Okay, so let's move on to the rating of the episode. So, I don't know how many people are actually going to be messaging us with what they're actually thinking their rating is, but do let us know and see if you agree with us. Ellen, would you like to go first? How many gears would you rate this particular episode?
2.
2?
2. I think it's more interesting that you know about the characters and how they kind of work together. I just didn't like the green screen. Like, I think this one could have been like an episode much later on, and that they could have taken their time to work with it, just to kind of make it look a bit more. So that's what I kind of wanted the most from it. It just, apart from having Majin, if it didn't have Majin in it, I think I'd have been like, like I would have skipped this one and just watched it on, like in quick format.
Yeah.
But what about you? What would you give it?
Right, I'm gonna say I'm actually gonna give this a rating of 3, and for now we're just gonna put that as the sort of general rating until we get more feedback from other people. But I do reckon that although you do say you have a good point about the green screen and news and stuff like that, one thing I did like about this episode was how fun it was and how they incorporated magic, and there was a lot of elements to it that I thought made it a great debuting episode. But like you said, I think the environments could use a little more work. But having magic involved in this, having the magic as the main theme, having an ice world which had represented fun itself, and I think it was just a nice mix of a light-hearted episode with a huge debut for a new Ranger. So yeah, I thought it was really good, and I like how they're doing this so far. You know, it's not just all 5 are on screen at once. It's we're going to introduce you this one, then this one, then this one. You can have a nice sort of introduction to each of these characters, get to know them a bit more, and then once they actually become Rangers, you get more connected to them than you would do if they all just appeared as a debuting episode. So I did like this. I think it highlights them a lot better the way they're doing it at the moment compared to when it was where they have them all debut and then, you know, one at a time they would have their individual episodes. I think this is a better formula in my opinion. So I hope they keep this up.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think that will be everything covered for today in this particular episode, and I wish everyone the best and could see that we may need to wait until we see the comments down below, but do let us know your favourite moments and particular loves about this episode. Do let us know your favourite episode so far, because that will be really interesting to find out, and do let us know also your episode rating for this episode too. But yeah, just before we cut off, there was a little bit of an announcement on social media and what people have been finding. So as you've also told me, Erlem, and as I've also found out, we've got mini-series episodes coming out which feature a lot of different things and are later on down the timeline, where we're actually getting spin-offs from Zenkaiger at the same time as Zenkaiger. Okay, so I believe in the first sort of episodes, generally what we're seeing is they're more, I don't know if they're more to do with the films that are coming, but you have human versions appearing for the Majin Duran. They're all got in human form for some reason, and we're also seeing, I believe it was a Zenkai Red, which I thought was really fascinating. So at the moment we obviously can't review those episodes because I've yet to find them where they're subbed. I think you have, but we'll have to wait and see before everyone's able to get accessible to these particular episodes before we start reviewing them. So what did you think when you first saw these pop up, Erlen?
I generally liked it. It shows that they're selling toys with the red gears, and it shows that obviously it's hard to say. It shows that there is thing. This is the reason why I don't like Guion, because if I want to watch it subbed so I know what he says, because if he is, I don't like his sort of character because he just disappears off where he ditches his team, and if that's the case, I don't like him as a character, and that will. I think that if this was like much later on, like it popped up, say episode 20, I'd be like, okay, I can understand this, but obviously being it straight on, it's more where does his allegiance lie, or is it just one of those kind of things where he got that speech where it's just like, you could stay with them, but you could come with me, and we can defeat the world. It's like, okay, and he just like wanders off. The human form I like it. I'm wondering if this could be a thing later on where they could say, well, we don't want the suits anymore, so we'll have the actual actors, the people that voice them, actually become the Rangers. And I would like to see that, like maybe we just see different colors of Zenkaiger. Zenkai pink, Zenkai blue, Zenkai yellow, and Zenkai, again, red. So burgundy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this though, because it would be nice to see that sort of difference of what could actually happen, because I think they are trying to lead us towards a film So having Zenkai Red and all this is quite curious to me, because that's what I imagined Zenkaiger to generally be. I didn't think it was going to be like particular names, because that's more associated with Kamen Rider than Super Sentai. So yeah, it's going to be curious to see what this miniseries actually gives us. But yeah, once those episodes actually come out, I'm sure we'll review them as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So that's better wrap this all up. So Erlem, where can everyone find you on social media, my dude?
Everywhere, like on Twitch, YouTube, Airlim. I was trying to think of all the other ones, Instagram as well, and then on Twitter, Mainstream Live. How about you?
You can always find me on Twitter at Henshin Asset, and also on Instagram. So thank you, my dudes. I hope to see all your comments and stuff soon. Thank you for joining us if you're still with us live, and thank you so much, Erlen, for joining me on this episode review. All right, thank you guys. See you next time.
See you later. Bye.